Ahmedabad, in that 1 minute when the AI-71 crashed, leading to the loss of life in total of about 270 people in the case of Air India Flight 171. The investigation into the devastating crash of Air India Flight 171 has intensified. Air India team, what began as a routine journey turned into a terrifying 45-second descent that no one could fully explain until now. Behind the smoke, wreckage, and silence lay a trail of overlooked clues that stunned even seasoned engineers. What did they find hidden in the data? And why is one tiny decision during takeoff now haunting global aviation? What was once theory is now something far more unsettling. The answer, as it turns out, wasn't just technical, it was something deeper. Curious? Let's start with the moment everything changed. On June 12, 2025, Air India flight AI-171 began its departure from runway 23 at Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport at approximately 1:38 p.m. local time. The aircraft, an 11-year-old Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, had just completed pre-flight checks and was cleared for takeoff, beginning what should have been a routine journey to London Heathrow. Within 30 seconds of rotation, a mayday call was transmitted by the crew and the aircraft entered an abnormal climb profile. Flight radar data captured an unsteady altitude increase before the signal abruptly stopped, prompting immediate concern from air traffic control. The black box data, recovered and currently being decoded in New Delhi, has already confirmed that the aircraft reached an altitude of less than 900 feet AGL before entering a sharp descent. Timeline reconstruction based on CVR, a cockpit voice recorder, and FDR, flight data recorder, input reveals an escalation of cockpit alarms related to stall warnings and possibly configuration alerts. These indicators suggest that something occurred during the transition from climb to cruise, possibly linked to aerodynamic control surfaces or a miscommunication between the crew and onboard automation. The jet's path transformed in about 45 seconds. The jet reportedly turned completely upside down in the air, an odd occurrence, before ending up striking the upper floors of a hostel building in the Mayani Nagar area. The transponder immediately ceased to reflect any altitude variations post-inversion, suggesting a failure in structure or a shutdown of the system. The controllers who were monitoring the aircraft reported an eerie silent experience after the mayday, with no follow-up transmission relayed by the pilots or first officer, which would typically be found during any critical phase of flight. This brief period is now a focal point of investigation for accident investigators. Aviation experts are as much interested in what went wrong as in how so much could go wrong within a block of 45 seconds. The speed of events during this time will determine whether AI-171 met its demise because of a single technical fault, chain faults, or an unrecoverable system interaction. This will be achieved by comparing a mixture of radar data, black box analytics, and flight crew profiles. The crash is indeed a bitter reminder of how quickly an ordinary flight can devolve into a tragedy of monumental proportions. But what lay beneath the smoke told a story far more haunting than anyone expected. Following the impact, the crash site of Air India flight AI-171 quickly transformed into a logistical and humanitarian emergency zone. The aircraft had plunged into the hostel wing of a medical college, instantly igniting multiple floors and triggering secondary explosions. Rescue crews arrived to find a multistructure inferno with fires fueled by jet fuel and the building's infrastructure. Thick black smoke and a chemical haze from burning composite material severely hampered visibility and air quality, forcing responders to rotate in short shifts with respiratory gear. The urban density of Mayani Nagar complicated access routes, requiring fire engines and ambulances to navigate narrow roads and crowded residential lanes. Several nearby structures suffered partial collapse due to the blast wave, and authorities had to clear debris quickly to create pathways for medical evacuation. The rescue operation became a round-the-clock mission involving firefighters, police, city engineers, and hospital workers, many of whom had never encountered a disaster of this magnitude. Makeshift triage units were set up outside the zone perimeter. Temporary morgues were established in collaboration with local hospitals in order to manage the upsurge of fatalities. In total, over 270 bodies were recovered, many of them burned beyond recognition or smashed into pieces courtesy of the force of the impact. Mobile DNA labs and forensic dentists were flown in from New Delhi and Mumbai to assist with victim identification, which was made even more urgent due to religious and cultural expectations for timely funeral rites. Designated collection points were set up for the public for personal belongings so that they can be catalogued in an effort to match them with DNA profiles. Faced with these most terrible of circumstances, the efficiency and courage of local responders saved further casualties in the surrounding buildings. The state government collaborated with national disaster management authorities to put in place mental health services for first responders and families of the aghast, many of whom witnessed scenes of destruction most desolate. The recovery phase, technically complete by 72 hours, was only the beginning of a long journey through grieving, traumatization, and rebuilding for Ahmedabad. Amid the overwhelming tragedy of Air India Flight AI-171, a single story of survival emerged, that of 40-year-old Vishu's Kumar Romsh, the lone survivor among 274 fatalities. Seated in 11A, Romsh was one of the few positioned near the section of the aircraft that remained marginally intact after the impact. Despite suffering serious burns and multiple fractures, he managed to escape the fiery wreckage moments after the crash, offering a rare first-hand account of the disaster. His survival stunned both investigators and the nation, quickly making him a symbol of resilience in the face of unimaginable destruction. In an exclusive interview from his hospital bed, Romsh recounted the seconds leading up to the crash. He described hearing an unusual mechanical noise and feeling the left side of the cabin buckle, suggesting that part of the aircraft's fuselage began disintegrating even before impact. According to him, the door panel near his seat blew open, exposing the cabin to open air and enabling his escape. "I thought I would die," he told NDTV, his voice quivering. "There was metal tearing, smoke, screaming. I crawled toward the light." His account lines with structural assessments that indicate premature fuselage rupture due to stress or impact forces during descent. The details through which Romsh survived offer insight into the findings of the crash investigation. His mention of the collapsing left side of the cabin with the door coming down detached while airborne could suggest that there was structural failure of the forward fuselage before ground impact, perhaps induced by aerodynamic imbalance or a secondary explosion. His position in the aircraft, which was not too far from the wing tanks or way back in the tail section, may have provided some relative protection to Romsh when the aircraft plowed apart. These events are now matched against black box data and debris examination to form the chronology of structural failures. Apart from being a major technical issue, Romsh's story also touched the popular imagination of the masses. While social media and news have hailed the escape as miraculous, it also serves as one of those solemn reminders of the randomness and violence in aviation accidents. Medical teams treating him testify that he remained mentally alert despite the physical trauma, and he has since cooperated extensively with investigators. His words have turned into a fragile window for the families of victims into the last few moments of their loved ones, and for aviation experts, his survival is, besides being a miracle, perhaps the key to discovering what actually took place during the last minutes of Flight AI-171. As investigators continue to unravel the causes of the Air India Flight AI-171 disaster, attention has zeroed in on a critical window, the first 30 seconds after takeoff, when the aircraft began to stall and ultimately plummet. A key theory gaining traction involves a possible flap configuration error. Aviation YouTuber and former pilot Captain Steve proposed that the co-pilot may have mistakenly retracted the flaps instead of the landing gear during the initial climb, depriving the aircraft of crucial lift. Observers on the ground supported this theory, noting the lack of typical wing flex, a clear indication that the flaps, which help generate lift at low speeds, were not properly extended. Further complicating the picture are maintenance-related red flags that suggest a potential mechanical component in the disaster. Preliminary logs from the Ahmedabad maintenance hangar revealed that the left wing's flap actuator had been serviced just weeks before the crash. However, quality control sign-offs were delayed by a week due to spare part shortages, raising concerns about whether the actuator was correctly calibrated or tested post-servicing. Experts cautioned that a misaligned actuator or faulty sensor could have sent incorrect signals to the cockpit or the flight computer, misleading the crew about flap positions. Investigators are also probing into whether confusion between automated systems and manual inputs comes into play. The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner is equipped with modern safeguards, However, misinterpretation of the state of flight controls for the aircraft by pilots is cited as a well-known hazard. Independent analyst on safety Crystal Jen emphasized that in modern jets, a moment is enough to result in misconfiguration, especially during takeoff, and worse, devastation is rife by a muddle. Given the time frame, less than 45 seconds from takeoff to impact, there was virtually no margin for recovery if anything failed critically or was even misused by the crew. The environmental angle appears to have been almost completely ruled out as a cause. There was clear meteorological evidence from the main weather reporting stations around the country, good visibility, standard pressures, and no wind shear. Radar scans did not reveal any bird strikes. There was no sign of bird ingestion found by the engine inspections. The focus has now turned sharply towards human factors and internal systems. The recovered flight data and cockpit voice recordings are currently being analyzed in New Delhi to reveal the exact configuration of flaps, slats, throttle levers, and pilot control inputs in the moments leading up to the crash. Until such time as those data are completely decoded, both mechanical failure and human error remain viable, and perhaps interrelated, primordial causes of this disaster.